Move now to the labor market regulation index presentation. I would like to first note that as of Doing Business 2019 and the upcoming Doing Business 2020, the result for the labor market regulation indicators will not be included in the general score of an economy. The information will be reflected, but it will not be included in the score. However, there are plans to include it in the upcoming years in the Doing Business report. So the presentation on this indicator will be general. And we will start by explaining why this indicator is important. So we know that that the regulations about employment are necessary in order to have a proper functioning of labor markets. It would protect employees from any arbitrary or unfair treatment. It will also increase social cohesion, and it will increase economic efficiency. Overregulation also can be an important constraint to business. So we look at minimum wage, at the complex worker dismissal procedures, and the high severance payments, and restrictions on overtime work. But on the other hand, under-regulations also have negative effects. We will have lack of safety standards, and there will be lack of unemployment protection. So that is why it's very important to find a good balance between over-regulating labor market and under-regulating it. The indicator in the Doing Business report is divided into 4 main indices. The first one assesses hiring, and we look at the availability and the duration of having fixed-term contracts. We look at the minimum wage in an economy, and what are the probationary periods given to employees. We also look at what are the working hours, so what is the maximum duration of the work week. We look at how much is the paid annual leave, what are the maternity leaves, the restrictions on premium for night work, weekly holiday work, and overtime work, and what are the restrictions on women's night work. We also look at the redundancy rules and cost. To be more specific, we look at the notification and approval requirement for dismissing 1 or 9 workers, at the rules for retraining, reassigning, and re-employing employees, and at the requirement for the notice and severance payment. We also look at any unemployment protections, at the paid sick leave, maternity leave, and the equal treatment of men and women in the workplace. As with other indicators, this indicator is also based on case study assumptions. So here we look at a cashier in a grocery store that is employed for full time and has 1 year of work experience. We assume that this worker is not a member of a labor union unless in the particular economy a membership in the labor union is mandatory. We also assume that the business is a limited liability company with 60 employees. It operates a grocery store in the economy's largest business city. We also assume that this company is subject to collective bargaining agreements if such agreements cover more than 50% of the food retail sector, and if such agreements apply to firms not party to them. We also assume that the business will abide by the law, but it's not going to grant workers more benefit than those mandated by law or collective bargaining agreements. So here we do not look at the possibility of what would be included in any private employee-employer contracts. So we only look at the minimum protections afforded by the law. In the Doing Business 2019 report, there are 19 economies that made changes to the labor laws in 2017-2018. Benin and Nepal altered their hiring rules. For example, Benin increased the maximum length of fixed-term contracts, while Nepal allowed fixed-term contracts and reduced probationary periods. Few countries amended their regulations when it comes to working hours. Some countries changed the redundancy rules and cost. Lithuania, for example, decreased the notice period and severance payment in case of redundancies. France increased severance payments. Other countries reformed legislation that would regulate worker protection and social benefits. For example, Canada increased paid annual leave and introduced 2 days of paid sick leave. Other countries, such as Israel, Luxembourg, Nepal, and South Sudan, increased the duration of the paid maternity leave. There were some changes in the labor law in Azerbaijan last year as well. On January 1st, 2018, there were amendments to the labor codes that changed the notice periods and severance payments in case of redundancy dismissals. It decreased the length of the notice period that an employer must provide before making an employee redundant after 1 and 5 years of continuous employment to 4 and 6 weeks respectively. It increased the length of notice that an employer must provide before making an employee redundant after 10 years of continuous employment to 9 weeks. It also changed severance payments for redundancy dismissals of employees after 1, 5, and 10 years of employment to 1.4, 1.7, and 2 times of monthly salary, respectively.